Buying translation and interpretation services in government can feel kind of messy. One school wants parents' letters translated. Another school is using WhatsApp messages to broadcast to parents and create engagement. Another agency needs last-minute interpreters on a Saturday night. And someone else is asking about accessibility and WCAG or 508 compliance with the PDFs that they're broadcasting. And your inbox is just full of vendors, RFPs, and questions about compliance that have to do with those contracts. If your state already participates in the NASPO ValuePoint contract, then you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you have a language services need. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a simple process on how to buy translation, interpretation, and accessibility support through the NASPO ValuePoint contract, and all in a way that is compliant, defensible, and actually usable by your team. Hi everyone, my name is Jason Ellinger, and I'm from TaikaTranslations. We have been supporting governments, schools, and nonprofits with translation, interpretation, and accessibility services in over 300 languages, 24 hours a day for more than 15 years. We have worked with hundreds and hundreds of entities, public and government sector all around the world, like the city of Boston, the United States Air Force, school districts all around the United States of America, and we have direct service contracts with the state of Minnesota, state of Oklahoma, California, and many others. And now, Taika is a supplier on the NASPO ValuePoint Master Agreement for remote translating and interpreting service, contract number 17972. And this video in particular is for procurement professionals, contract managers, and program managers who need language services, have access to the NASPO ValuePoint contracting vehicle, and they want a clear and very simple way to actually utilize the contract. Before we move on to this framework, I'd like to highlight in the video this information for general education purposes only and does not constitute illegal advice. Every state and public entity has its own procurement laws, regulations, and internal policies that have to be followed. So you should always review your own agency's policies and requirements and consult your legal team or central procurement team before applying anything from this video to a live procurement. Now, let's break down a step-by-step framework that you can use for any procurement need or vendor on NASPO, including us. So if you work in procurement of any resources for your department, you probably recognize this pattern. Multiple departments across the board need translation and interpreting at the same time. There's no consolidated vendor for each one. Everybody just kind of picks whoever they feel is marketing to their entity best at that time. People are hiring whoever they can find for one-off jobs that they just pop up and find on Google without an in-depth investigation on who they might be or how their performance is across the board. And then someone asks, is this vendor on contract? At the same time, running a full RFP for language services can be really time-consuming, expensive for all the staff hours that are going to be required to actually implement the process of issuing the RFP, doing the questioning, answer sessions, and all that follows. And at the end of all of those things, you have these vulnerable protests and delays in the contracting process that could hold it up for even more months. NASPO ValuePoint exists to reduce that friction or eliminate it completely. But on the ground, people still ask these questions. Where do I start? What is covered under this contract? How do I make sure that we're buying the right thing, especially for translation and interpreting? And that's what we're solving in this video. What you need before you even touch the contract. The first step in the process actually has nothing to do with NASPO, but it has everything to do with clarity. Before you look at the contract, answer these basic questions. First question, what kind of services do I really need? For language, that usually means something in the realm of document translation, letters, forms, reports, legal forms, documents, or policies of some sort. On the interpreting side, it could mean I need phone interpretation, video, or on-site for different meetings, for some kind of hearings that we're administrating, parent-teacher meetings, conferences, or different types of appointments. For the accessibility side, it could be captions, subtitling, 508 compliance, WCAG remediation for PDFs, and other compliance requirements for digital broadcasted documents. And then there's the transcription side, turning audio and video into text, sometimes with the translation aspect in it. Some buyers assume that translation covers all of that. And while it does play a part in all of those things, it can be very confusing to navigate how, who, or when, or what, or who does what, when, where, and how. Being explicit for what you need up front saves you lots and lots of headaches later down the road. So the second question we have to answer is, who are the main users for this procurement? Is this mostly schools for parent communication? Is it for health and social services? Or is this for legal and compliancy? Different users care about different things: response times, specific languages, or even the confidentiality aspect. The third question we have to answer before investigating the contract is which languages and volumes for those languages matter the most? What are your top 5 or 10 languages by demand from your department or from your entity? Do you have any rare or emerging languages in your community that you simply can't ignore? Is this volume steady, or are there more spikes around certain events that are happening in your community or your broadcasting? This information will help you filter vendors who can handle the day-to-day volume versus those who handle only small projects on a consistent basis. The last question you need to answer is this: what outcomes do you want to measure? For example, do you want faster turnaround times? Because maybe we started the process a little bit late. That happens all the time. Believe me, we deal with this all the time and we help people through that. Do I want fewer complaints and quality issues? Because in this day and age, we have so much technology at our fingertips. Some translation agencies, they simply process all the documentation through AI. But that doesn't necessarily produce the best outcome, because if you've tried to do that recently, you can probably see why. Another outcome might be consistent messaging and messaging protocol across agencies and schools. And a fourth outcome you might want to measure is better compliance with civil rights and accessibility requirements. Once you have these things written down, you are ready to look at NASPO. All right, so step number 2. I know this information might be a little bit compact, but stick with me. If you work through the steps, I'm going to do a recap at the end of this. If you work through the steps, you will be able to clearly and effectively use the contract. So step number 2 in this process: understand the NASPO structure for your state. So here's a quick refresher. NASPO ValuePoint works as a lead state model contract administration program. A lead state runs the full competitive procurement and awards for a master agreement, and other states can sign participating addendums that marry to that master agreement to use under that same contract and procurement process that's already been taken care of by a very competent team, typically on a multi-state level. I mean, the team actually consists of procurement professionals and officials from multi-states in order to process that procurement and do the evaluations. So all of that work is done up front, and it's really nice. And for language services, that usually shows up in a portfolio like remote interpreting and translating services, or a similar naming for whatever it is that you might be working to procure. Here's what you can do. Number 1, confirm your state's participation. The first thing we have to do is confirm your state's participation in this procurement process. All right, so you just go to the NASPO website, and for example, if we're looking for translation, we just type in translation at the top, and we can search for the contract that might be associated with a procurement requirement. And on this screen, I've already pulled up the remote interpreting and translating services contract, and you can see that on the screen. The next thing that we need to do is to find the master agreement for this contract and search for your state's PA. Is it active? Then we need to go and look at the master agreement. You can also check on the contractors page, and TaikaTranslations is listed right here on the list for this contract. Then you can see how many states for this contract, so you can see who has participating addenda under this master agreement. You can click on the state, and you can see all the languages, including TaikaTranslations, listed here, down here at the bottom. Pretty cool. So you're going to want to read these 3 documents. One is the master agreement. This defines the overall scope, pricing framework, and obligations that anyone has for the contract. Your PA adds local terms, who's eligible, and some administrative fees if required by the state. And in addition to that, there may be any state-specific attachments or guides in association with the PA that they have signed in accordance with that coincides with the master agreement from the lead state. Sometimes there's a 1-pager or possibly a frequently asked questions page attached as well. And the good part is you don't have to memorize everything, but you just have to get a feel for which services are clearly within that scope, which vendors are awarded under this contract, and how ordering is supposed to work under the contract. And they try to make it very, very simple. So when you go back to the page, you can really see all of the information here from this contract in one shot. The overview, you have the master agreements right here, and you, as you scroll down through this page, you can see all of the information and all the contractors on this agreement right here in front of you. And then you have the contract personnel. You can see Susan Inman, she's from the lead state for the administration of this contract. And you can see the supplier engagement manager, Tanya, who we work with as we market to new organizations under this contract. And then you can see the information on the award and the portfolio information on all the information on how they work through processing this award and how they work through soliciting this contract. And so you can see if all of this is in compliance with your local state, as well as if you need to make a participating agreement, you can go on here and find the participating agreement, download New Mexico's PAs, and you can have an example of the participating agreement for that state. And if you would like to work with any of the contractors on this list, for example, TaikaTranslations, you can just reach out to us individually and we will send you the PA that comes from this contract that your state can then review and sign for your entity. And it's not just the entire state that has to utilize it in order for you to be able to utilize it. Some states issue a blanket statement for the entire state. Like we'll get a letter from the state saying, hey, our state recognizes NASPO ValuePoint and you can utilize this contract for any entity within the state. For example, the state of Delaware recently issued this letter to us and they said, you can market to anyone in the entire state under this contract. We recognize the use of this contract and you are more than welcome to work with all the entities in our state utilizing this contract vehicle. And so many states will go with that method. There are different methods and you just have to know what methodology your state is using to launch and utilize the resources under the NASPO ValuePoint contract. So you're going to want to identify the vendor's main points of contacts, and that's easily accessible. Just click on the vendor and you'll see their PAs. Or if we don't have a PA with your state, then you can just click on our contact person. I think our contact name on this contract is sales@TaikaTranslations.com. You can shoot us an email and we'll zap you over all the documentation that you need to be able to set up your PA with your state or just your specific entity. If you look through the NASPO contracting and procurement site, you can see that many entities have their individual participating addendum for the master contract on the NASPO ValuePoint contracts so that they can participate in this, even if the actual State Department for their specific state doesn't have a standing agreement because maybe they have an alternative master agreement or something like that. At the end of your review, after you understand what the services you need, you've gone to the NASPO site, you've typed it in, and then you have verified whether or not your state has a PA participating addendum for that procurement need, then you will see all of the eligible vendors under that contract. And as you can see, our company's listed there. So languages XYZ are covered and this type of service is covered under that, and you can utilize the service and sign a participating addendum, or you can just work directly with that vendor, however your state sees fit to administrate these contracts. Now, it's time to talk about the vendors. Here is a checklist to select a vendor. You have to treat the NASPO contract as a starting point for not the entire relationship. The relationship starts after you make contact and you find out whether or not you want to work with that partner. The goal of the very first conversation is to answer this one question. Can this vendor support our real world needs under the NASPO agreement? You can structure the call, Zoom meeting, or email around 4 themes. 1, services and capacity. Basically asking the question, which services do you provide under the NASPO contract? Do you provide document translation, phone, interpreting, video, on-site, or accessibility? What do you provide under the actual NASPO contract you have? How many languages can you support? And since you have your list of the top 5 to 10, making sure that those languages are actually on the list. What is your capacity for peak periods? For example, enrollment or campaigns or broadcasts for community engagement in your sector, or maybe other emergencies that could arise in your city or having to do with your entity. At Taika, we support over 300 languages and a global team with 24/7 support. So a school district might say, we need evening and weekend coverage as well. And so we build that into the NASPO-based plan that we have for that entity. All right, so the next theme might be around quality and security. What does your quality assurance process look like? Do you have a second language review? Do you have subject matter experts required for legal, medicinal, or educational required related content? How do you protect our sensitive information? For example, in the area of HIPAA, FERPA, or PII and data security protocols. How do you handle complaints and corrections? That's a really important question to ask the vendors up front, because some of them simply say, once the job's done, we're out. And you have to deal with this on your own or create a new project with us, and then we'll take a look at it. Others have policies where they'll go through and do a certain amount of corrective implementations. And so you have to make sure you know who you're dealing with and how that's going to be handled in the event that becomes an issue. The third theme is this, turnaround times and SLAs. What is that about? What are the standard turnaround times that you require for your entity? Are you processing lots of 2-page letters or memos? Do you have a 20-page policy when there's something larger, or some of these projects get into the thousands of pages? Are you looking for urgent phone interpreter requests? Somebody just walks into the office, they don't speak the language, and you need help right away. In addition to that, what are the rush options that organization has available? And what service levels can they commit to under this specific contract. The fourth consideration is ordering and implementation. How do departments submit requests? Is it a portal-based system? Do you just order by email? Do you pick up the phone and call? Is there a ticket system? Can you help us onboard multiple agencies or schools at one time? Can you provide training sessions or office hours to our staff? And what type of monthly reporting can you give us for the work that we process through your organization? Is it monthly, quarterly, usage-based, spend by department, language requested, etc.? By the way, you don't have to memorize all this stuff. If you want, leave a comment on this video and my team will send you a document with the full list of questions that you must have when you're working with a new NASPO vendor. By the end of this first conversation that you're having with the NASPO ValuePoint vendor, you should be able to clearly see, does this vendor understand the public sector context? Can they help us consolidate demand across agencies? Are they proactive about training and reporting for our personnel, or are they just there waiting for orders? Now, step 4 in the process is launch, communicate, and manage the contract. This last step is where many good contracts fail, and that's the implementation part. First of all, people don't know that the contract exists. Somebody somewhere did the procurement process and brought it to life, but nobody actually knows how to use it, and nobody told them that they have access to it in their state or within their entity. Here is a simple rollout plan that you can copy for your organization. Create a one-page contract information guide for your team or your entity. So this page should answer these questions. Who can use the contract? What services are included in this contract? How do you request them? Who do you contact in case of emergencies or for extra assistance? And what turnaround times should you expect when you actually make a request? For our organization, TaikaTranslations, when we enter into a new relationship with a client, we build this aspect into our onboarding documentation. For every contract we have, we also do at least one awareness training where we invite key departments, for example, education, health, social sectors, legal, or communications teams within the department, or someone from the procurement and contracting sector to be a part of that meeting to make sure that everything is in alignment and compliance. For our team, in 30 to 60 minutes, we can walk through the NASPO Contract basics for your entire team. We can explain the entire ordering process to help your entity make sure that it's in compliance and that it has access to the required services and all the reporting requirements are taken care of. And we can show examples of good and best practices and good requests and what not to do, more importantly, I think sometimes. Now, in the launching and administration of the contract, the third thing we have to do is agree on the simple KPIs and check-in rhythm for the contract. So turnaround times by project type, volume by the department of the school, the number of complaints or corrections that have happened in those interactions, and what are the actual emerging usages of the top languages in that relationship. Then we schedule a review. Depending on the volume, this is scheduled either monthly, quarterly, annually, or whatever frequency works best for the contracted entity. This may include procurement staff, maybe staff changes throughout the year, and the vendor's account manager that we assign to your organization as we enter into the agreement. Essentially, we want to know the answer to 2 questions. What's working and where are people getting stuck? We work through that in each of these sessions. A good vendor will bring ideas to this meeting, how we can make improvements and make those implementations quickly and painlessly. For example, our multicultural training. You can see the link here below. The link's too long for me to spell it out. So you can see the link in the video or below in the video notes, and you can click on that and see multicultural communication training portion where we deliver this type of training for your department. The new templates for ordering. In the event that your organization doesn't like the old template or it's hard or clunky to use, we update those on a rapid basis. And as soon as we find out that there may be some friction in the usage of it, maybe some information is left out, maybe the right people are not on the drop-down menu or the right departments, etc. And just general process tweaks to reduce back and forth communication and delays. Somebody was out of office. This person was responsible for that. Nobody realized this was delivered. That person inbox is full. And all of these kind of small things that cause the process to get gummed up or to people to get frustrated or people to get frustrated throughout the administration. When you do this, NASPO stops being just another contract number and becomes a living tool that your team and your organization or state can actually use. All right, now, I know this has been a lot. Thank you for sticking with me to this point, but let's do a final recap just to kind of summarize, okay? The first thing we do is clarify our need. Services, users, languages, and outcomes. Second thing, understand the NASPO setup. Master agreement, your state's PA, and any eligible entities or rules and regulations within your state that cause something to be a little bit different for you. Third thing, talk to the vendors and ask the right questions. Services, service capacity, quality, security, SLAs, and onboarding. Making sure those are all in alignment with what your needs are. And then fourthly, launch and manage the contract. Do you have the contract information guide for your entire entity? Do you need to require any training? And can that new NASPO vendor provide that training for you? And what are your KPIs, the key performance indicators, and your regular check-in sequences? If you follow this, you don't just have a NASPO contract on paper. You have a practical and compliant way to support your communities and languages in the language they actually speak. If you would like a real-life example of what this looks like, you can go to our website and schedule a free consultation with us. You'll find the link below in the description. And if you are in a state that uses the NASPO ValuePoint contract for remote interpreting and translating services, and you want to see what working with Taika actually looks like, there's also a link in the description notes to schedule a short conversation with our team. If this was helpful to you in any way, please hit like so that more procurement professionals around the United States can find this video and utilize it. And drop a comment below on what the hardest part is for you in buying language services for your entity. And that might pop up in a future episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.